Welcome to Launch Code, a premier business podcast, starring Evan Hafer, Matt Best, and Jared Taylor.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Launch Code. I'm your host today, Baker Levitt. My co-host is Trevor the Seal, and our guest today is Chef Richard Bradford, a good buddy of mine whom I've known for about 8 years, and Richard owns a company called True Fare, which was originally pre-made paleo. So a lot of people you hear about, pre-made foods and prepackaged foods, and you're seeing a lot more of that. Richard was the first person in the country to make, package, and ship paleo meals, which is pretty cool. So he's a trailblazer. So, Richard, let's talk a little bit about how you got where you are today, your background in the cooking industry, because you're a formerly trained French chef, right?
Yes, French trained the Culinary Institute of America in Hyde Park, New York. And so I had gone there after finishing up undergrad. And so I'm not sure how much time we have this morning.
All the time you want.
All the time? Okay, so I'll definitely, kind of give some background on...
But before you can do that, so when Richard first told me that he was like, I was a chef and, mentioned CIA, and I was like, Central Intelligence Agency has chefs and shit? Like, they have a cooking program? That's pretty fucking cool. And then he was like, no, Culinary Institute of America. I was like, oh, okay, I got it now. So, anyway, so where'd you grow up?
Grew up in Connecticut.
Connecticut, and then where'd you go to college?
I went to Georgia Tech, and then I finished... Oh, I know. Finished up at Kennesaw State.
Okay.
And then went basically right after graduating up to Culinary Institute.
Okay, so talk about that. What is cooking school? Like, how does it work? I know nothing about it. I read Anthony Bourdain's Kitchen Confidential book after he passed away.
Right.
Phenomenal book. And he talked a little bit about cooking school. And so that's my knowledge base on that whole thing. So I would like to learn more about that, because someone out there is listening to this that wants to go to cooking school. What is cooking school? How does it work? Get into that.
Sure. And that was actually one of my my volumes I read right before going to CIA as well, because I was, wanting to know what I was getting into. The context that I had was, cooking for my family growing up, and for people in college, we'd, put together parties, and I would be, featured cooking. So I knew I had a talent there, and, it really had developed into a passion. But what cooking school is about is, you want to be working at a restaurant beforehand. Some people don't go, but to have that background is going to give you, it's just kind of like, preparing for the class before you're going. And then you go and you learn your basics of, culinary math and gastronomy background, just learning, identifying vegetables and things like that. And then you actually get into the cooking fundamentals. And cooking fundamentals are, you really start with stocks, like learning how to make base soups and stocks. And other practical knowledge, like whether or not butchering seafood and butchering land animals. And those kind of give you that basis, cutting techniques. All those things are like what gives you that ability to move forward and start, identifying cultural cuisines and adapting recipes and developing your own style and cook professionally in
So,
kitchen.
are there people that go to cooking school that have no knowledge or background in cooking?
Absolutely.
Like, they don't know the difference between a paring knife and like a chopping knife and shit like that. Trevor, you're a foodie. You like food. You like to cook.
Oh, yeah.
And so, like, the different knives and like how to dice shit and things like that. They teach you all that. Like,
well, they do. They basically, they start everybody with the feeling that, we're going to teach you what you need to know here. So having that prior knowledge is very helpful, but they're also going to show you how they do it.
Right.
What is the French way to do this? Because that's what our instructors are bringing to the table, and that's, what we're learning from. The more you have going in it, you're going to pick up the skill set faster. But people who have no, experience whatsoever can go to culinary school, and some do very well. I mean, there's some that, I mean, it's a process that also weeds out people, I mean, that, you know, are just really not up for the challenge, because, I mean, it's hard work. I mean, you're on your feet, you're working hard, it's a stressed environment, and they really help to kind of simulate those environments. I mean, it's nothing like being in the real world with cooking. I mean, that's where you really get your training afterwards. I mean, you kind of get your background. I can work in a restaurant. I mean, I can get that job interview and get a job offer, but, you know, you're really going to shine and really display whether or not you're going to be able to make it after culinary school. But I mean, they're definitely going to have a lot of dropout. I mean, I'd say the attrition rate there, I mean, don't quote me on this, but I'd say, you know, 1 out of 4 didn't actually finish culinary school.
So it's kind of like, you know, buds. There's dudes that are like, that crush buds and then get to a team and like aren't good SEALs.
I'm sure it is similar to a lot of selection process where it's the top 10%. I'm sure the instructors don't necessarily have that much to worry about. It's like, that guy or that woman just gets it. The bottom 10%, they're spending all their time on, and the middle 80, like, they're probably going to do fine.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of similarity there.
Yeah.
This son of a bitch can't even skin a potato. He's never going to make it. Yeah, but you should see his knife game.
Well, and you know, you really showcase your weaknesses while you're in these classes and in these scenarios, because I mean, if you decide you're going to go out to the bar the night before instead of prepare for your class the next day, which is, you know, a very common experience. I mean, a lot of these people, it's kind of their first time away from home, to just kind of the whole chef lifestyle where you do have that work-life balance, and that life balance is, you know, I mean, we try and sandbag as much as we can and do a good job while we're doing it. So, I mean, that's, you know, that permeates.
How long was cooking school?
It was 22 months, and that included a 4.5-month internship.
So roughly 2 years.
Yeah.
Okay. And what does cooking school cost?
When I was there, it was about $52,000. I think that was
for the full time period.
Yeah.
Are there other cooking schools that aren't that expensive?
Yeah, CIA is at the top of the expense. I mean, there may be some boutique schools that are a little bit more than that, but you know, you're ranging between $40,000 and $50,000.
I assume that's a lot like a lot of trade schools. I mean, I did a year at the Chicago Art Institute,
right?
And the cost is a little bit reflective of how easy it is to get placed.
Yeah.
Following, like, oh, you went to X. Now we know that you have a credential that really matters.
Yeah, I mean, just like what I was touching on, I mean, you were going to get that job interview. And, I mean, if we put that resume out, I mean, that would definitely set us up for an interview. You know, we would have to perform, you know, when we do a stage in that case. So, you know, when you're coming from an art institute, I'm sure they just kind of have a feeling like, all right, well, they have a pretty good context that they're bringing forward into this.
So the cooking schools, the main ones you got: CIA, Culinary Institute of America. You have Johnson Wales. What are some of the other big ones?
Le Cordon Bleu.
Yeah, where's that?
They have a multitude of locations. I mean, I think originally they're in Paris, but they had one in Atlanta. They're up in the Northeast. They're out west as well.
And Johnson Wales has 2. I think one's in Charleston, and then one's somewhere on the.
One's up in Providence, I believe.
Yeah, that's right. Providence, and then I think the other one's in Charleston.
Yeah, and then you have a few in New York as well.
Right.
So
A lot of East Coast.
Yeah.
So
More sophisticated cooks on the East Coast.
Says who?
yeah, I mean, I would say that you know, for the most part, we look at you know, California cuisine is kind of like the step beyond the French cuisine. So I mean, that was, you know, where people would aspire to go into if they weren't going to go into Manhattan. You know, you find a lot of the grads went out west.
Okay, and then so you finish up with Culinary Institute of America, and then where'd you go from there?
From there, I actually moved back to Atlanta. I started a catering business.
Okay.
I mean, while I was in culinary school, I had a side job working for a caterer that was run by a CIA grad, and I really liked it. I mean, I had a finance undergrad degree, and so when I looked at the business model of catering, I was like, all right, well, I don't need a location. I mean, it's relatively low startup cost, and it also helped me leverage my personality and things that I think really I brought a lot to the table on top of cooking. So, I mean, I started this catering business while filling up my calendar with working for other catering companies in Atlanta. So I had like 5 jobs on top of my own catering business that I started.
Wow. And then you also, you were selling sandwiches out of the back of your Honda.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was real. It was kind of a fun conversation that that led to a great idea that, I mean, who knew where it was going to go. But I was sitting with one of my friends and, just kind of figuring, and she was an entrepreneur as well. She still is. And we're trying to figure out, all right, what sort of niche can I create that I can really just get behind and set myself apart in Atlanta. And it was like, let's sell sandwiches. I mean, but these are going to be great sandwiches. They're not going to be just your normal deli sandwich. They're going to be a CIA grad is making these sandwiches, and that's what I did. I mean, I actually made these sandwiches in my basement, my home. Definitely to the chagrin of my my landlord and roommate and best friend at the time.
Most people don't know this, but Paula Dean, Paula Dean is Paula Dean moved from Albany, Georgia to Savannah, Georgia.
Right.
And that's how she got her start. No shit, was selling bag lunches, brown paper bag lunches around town. That's how she got her start also.
I mean, it makes sense. Like, if you have a personality that is sales driven and entertaining, and you have a passion for something, and then you can immediately show your technique and what the product is, there it is, right on the table.
And if you can solve a problem, people eat lunch.
Yeah.
If you can bring the food to them.
Everybody has to eat. Everybody has to sleep.
Yeah, everybody's got to eat. Everybody's got to sleep. Everybody's got to go to the bathroom. But if you can bring, like, solving a problem, making life easier for people. So you're making sandwiches, selling people good sandwiches. Paula Dean was selling people lunches in a brown paper bag, bringing the food to them. They didn't have to worry about it. It was that simple. So you're streamlining life for people.
Oh, it was. And as it turns out, I saw a market with like upscale hair salons and corporate offices. So I would go in there with my like CIA chef jacket.
There we go.
With a basket of sandwiches.
Rocking his trident.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I can see how that'll sell. Like, Atlanta's like the Hollywood of the East, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I would go in there with 3 different kinds of sandwiches, and I would look at it as a success if I sold every one, and even if I didn't, I was giving the rest out as samples. But I mean, some days I made absolutely no money, but some days, I mean, if I made $100, it was like a win. I mean, it was a win because I was passionate about it. I mean, I was like, I chose this and I'm doing it, and I came in with a smile every day. And so I actually saw an opportunity to grow the business with, selling sandwiches. Like, why not sell it to one of the caterers that I'm working for?
Yeah, but it's interesting that, you said if you made no money or you made $100. And when you start a business, there's a saying in the business world, like, your first 100 customers are your most important. And it's something that's being very rewarding to know that your idea maybe hasn't been accepted by the masses, but if you can get people to say yes when you get started, because rejection when you're first starting a business sucks.
Right.
It's horrible. Hey, what do you think about this? Oh, no. But if you take the mindset that with every no you hear, you're that much closer to your first yes, then you'll be successful. But it's interesting. So you're selling sandwiches. You realize, hey, I'm onto something here, and this works. I'm going door to door selling sandwiches, and people are into it. So then, what was that next iteration?
Well, I mean, the next thing that happened was I approached the director of sales for the catering company I was working for the most, and I told him, I was like, maybe you guys would like these sandwiches for your lunch clients. And, I didn't know where it was going to go, but I handed 2 for him, one for the owner of the company and for himself. And then a couple days later, they asked me into their restaurant, which was adjacent to the catering operation. And they sat me down and they said, Richard, we really, just wanted to talk to you about these sandwiches that you gave, and wanted to talk a little bit more about something that we have a need for. We have a lot of clients that we will say no to because we're not set up to take them. I mean, it's about $150,000 of business annually that we say no to. Would you be interested in partnering with us and taking care of these clients for us? And if you're interested in that, we would like to move forward with you. And I was like, yes, absolutely.
150 grand, I'm going to be rich.
I'm in.
I'm buying a Ferrari tomorrow. I'm going to have a private jet.
Yeah, I mean, so it's like coming from $100 is a win to, okay, well, you're going to refer me this business? Absolutely. And, obviously it elevated the, the strata of, the customers that we were going to be serving, all of those things kind of came into play. And so
it elevated your thought process too.
Oh, for sure. Because, I wasn't like, when you always kind of like build a box around yourself. At least I have is, when running a business, it's a lot of times you don't entertain other ideas because you're just kind of focused, dialed in. All right, like I just keep grinding through and I'm going to, a breakthrough will happen. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I just would focus on doing the work every day. So, when they offered me this opportunity, I said, absolutely. And, a couple weeks later, I'm in my first catering event, and it's Jane Fonda and Arthur Blank in her condo in Atlanta, and I'm doing personal chef work. I made dinner for them. She was talking with the Arthur Blank Foundation.
So most people listening, everyone probably knows who Jane Fonda is. Arthur Blank was the founder of Home Depot, and he's the owner of the Atlanta Falcons.
So he did okay.
Yeah, he's doing fine. He's doing fine. He owns the Hawks too, doesn't he?
Well, he owns the Atlanta United.
Yeah. The Atlanta United soccer team,
yeah.
So that's a pretty good little, that was kind of a wake-up call, yeah?
Oh, it sure was. It wasn't, it wasn't all star-studded, but, these were all very solid clients that I was introduced to and referred, and I was able to build my business from there. And that was the end of 2004 when that happened. So basically, rolling into 2005 was when my catering business really started moving and had its own legs. And I ran that successfully for 8 years. And, during that time, and I had, a number of different, avenues where I served catering clients, whether or not I owned 2 event facilities. One was at an art gallery. One was at a studio kitchen. And I would do personal chef work, too, and which actually, kind of leads me to, the next kind of turning point opportunity that I had when I was catering a commercial shoot at Morehouse College. It was Jerome Bettis was on site doing a commercial.
The bus.
Yeah, and he loved my flank steak. He came over like in between cuts, and he would just kind of keep loading up on it. And I befriended his agent, and a couple weeks later, I got a call from him, and he had just requested that I come and talk with Jerome and his wife because he had just finished up with his NFL career and moved to Atlanta, and they were looking for a personal chef. And so I said yes to that call, and but I was trying to figure out how do I serve him, on an efficient manner. I'm not a personal chef alone. I have his catering business to run. So what I would do is I would make meals and vacuum seal them and bring them up to his house, and I was showing Jerome and his wife, how to heat up these meals. I'm literally boiling in the bag and heating up their meals at their home, and we did that for about a year. So, that was kind of a seed that was planted a couple years before I found myself making prepared meals, and my catering business evolved into this prepared meal business.
And so that's how Pre-Made Paleo was founded.
It really was.
It goes back to Jerome Bettis.
Yeah, it does. I could not deny that had a role because, I would not have, thought forward into, making prepared meals and delivering them to customers in that manner if I didn't have that experience back, a couple of years prior.
What a great dovetail. The bus eating steak leads into paleo.
Right?
Jerome Bettis and flank steaks.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And then, so how did the Pre-Made Paleo thing take off? Like, how did that? Because the concept of, most people understand pre-made meals, they arrive ready to go. Like, right. I get that. Like, I have your stuff in my freezer and in my fridge. and I open the package, I put it in my skillet, and it's done. But like, how do you get to that point? It's like, okay, here's the ingredients, and then the shipping and logistics and
Sure.
which I don't know I doubt they train you for that at the Culinary Institute of America. So you have to figure out, how did you figure all that out?
So, I mean, I would say that the background in the catering gave, a certain savvy towards the logistical side of it. But the production of the food is very similar to how you would make catered food. I mean, we make par amounts of meals. And, so we just kind of project how much we're going to need, but we're making the meals from scratch. We're sourcing the ingredients and making every individual meal and vacuum sealing them. And then, actually, let me move back to how I got into the prepared meal space as it is. I mean, my health had its, it took a toll, working as a chef and as a caterer. And so that's why I chose to go into making prepared meals for the paleo diet, because when I researched it, it was like, all right, I can't shoot any holes in this. This completely makes sense to me. Let me try it out. And I tried it for 3 months. And so in that time, it felt like I discovered the fountain of youth.
For those listening, what is paleo?
Paleo, I mean, it's it's the name itself is based on the Paleolithic era, but I mean, the idea behind it is eating the way our ancestral forefathers, the hunter and gatherer culture, ate. And so you're removing things that, I mean, grains are an industrialized agricultural product. So I mean, you're focused more on meats, plant, grass-fed meats, seafood, vegetables, fruit, nuts,
it's essentially
seeds.
Everything before the agricultural revolution, so pre 8,000 years ago.
Exactly. So, I mean, that's that mindset. Like our bodies have evolved to actually process food that way. And since then, all these processed foods, all these other products that are not naturally digested by our bodies are they have inflammatory effects. They have, just not optimal conditions. We're not eating optimal food as an American culture. So
Right.
the paleo diet is kind of like the answer to that.
It makes sense because it takes a life form like a mammal like us about 10,000 years to adapt and change genetically to a food source. And grain hasn't been in our diet long enough to have that genetic adaptation.
Yeah.
So why keep,
Like if you look
why
at
keep
the,
eating it? We're not.
Like Native Americans, like the Plains Indians, they ate buffalo, stuff like that, versus the East Coast Indians were introduced to the agricultural stuff much sooner than the Plains Indians. And it's still obvious in those societies today with like the rampant diabetes and stuff, and like
And the height difference.
Introduction of alcohol. I think on average, the tribes run about 29 to 32% diabetes, So Paleolithic, Rob Wolf wrote a great book about that. And what was the name of Rob?
His was the Paleo Solution.
The Paleo Solution, yeah, Rob Wolf. And then Paleo Manifesto, John Durant, a good buddy of mine, wrote that one. Those are two good books I suggest people read. It doesn't sound like it would be interesting reading about a diet, but it actually makes great sense. Both books they're very different in the way they were written. Like Durant's a Harvard grad, and he's very well written, and he does a great job with it. And then Rob Wolf's Paleo Solution is awesome as well. So your health, wellness was kind of an indicator, or I guess a red flag for you to like kind of clean your diet up and all that stuff, and that's how you got into the paleo, pre-made paleo.
Well, yeah, because the effects were so they were so obvious that I changed my approach to diet, just as a result of that. I mean, when I saw what it did to me, I felt like, all right, I'm poisoning my customers if I'm not feeding them this kind of food. And I made that decision, which definitely was antagonistic to my catering clientele that I had developed over 8 years. But I mean, it was a leap of faith that I took to, to start focusing on this kind of lifestyle. And and most of my clients actually told me good luck, and so that was kind of the phase out of the catering part of my career. But there was a community that was all ready to take me in, and that was the CrossFit community.
Right, and that's how we met.
And exactly
2010, I think, is when we met.
11, yeah, 2011.
Yep.
Yeah.
June?
Yeah.
2011?
Yeah. I think it was at a Garage Games or something like that.
Absolutely. And so you had to adapt to, but also there was a degree of timing there. So you had a customer base that you could transfer into already that existed. So it was a leap of faith, but you were kind of jumping into a pool where you kind of knew what fish were swimming in it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I really didn't know how passionate they were until I dug in quite a bit more. And I started CrossFitting myself, and I was like, this is a very, very passionate culture that, cares. That's just like, initial training for CrossFitters is to dial in their nutrition, for optimal training. Mm-hmm. And so, what I did was I reached out to all the owners of the CrossFit gyms in Atlanta and told them I would bring them a refrigerator if I could do delivery service to them. So I went from like having, no outlet for these meals and just a couple clients to having, I guess like 26 gyms, which was probably most of them in Atlanta at the time, probably about, 150 of them now in Atlanta. But
so putting the fridge in the gym and bringing the food to them, it's like you're making sandwiches. You were providing a service and making life easier.
Yep.
Providing solutions.
Yep.
Identifying a problem they didn't know they had, and then providing us, hey, listen, here, you got this problem, dude, but I know how to solve it for you. Here, check this out. That's interesting. So how long did you have pre-made paleo? And like, what were some of the kind of journeys and milestones in that business?
So I developed pre-made paleo really on the heels of what was called RSB Catering, my catering business.
Okay.
So in 2012 is when I actually formed my company. I brought a business partner who was a financial partner into the business, and we built pre-made paleo and ran that until I did it in partnership form for I guess 6 years, and then recapitalized and bought my partner out and have been sole owner since then.
And then you do stuff with Whole30, right?
Yes. So actually, right when I started with pre-made paleo, this was in 2012. Melissa Hartwig from the Whole30 had reached out to me, and she and her ex-husband were doing seminars promoting the Whole30 all around the country. And so they were coming to Atlanta, and the CrossFit gym that was hosting their seminar had given her my name. And so she gave me a call, and she was basically calling to vet me as a resource for lunch for their seminar. And so, she was kind of giving me we need this, this, and this. And I was like, well, yeah, that's what we do. It's like dairy-free, no sugars and, nothing processed. And I was like, yeah, that's what we offer. She's like, really? And because I think that was probably not her experience with most caterers in the various markets that they would go to. So we did the lunch, and then I ended up connecting with her at an event in Austin the following month. And we just kind of we developed a friendship, and we're one of the first Whole30 approved companies that they had there, and so to take it further, what we ended up doing was shipping meals to their seminars. When they were going all around the country, I would ship meals to them, and I would either coordinate the catering for them or actually fly out to the events and cater these lunches. So we got to know each other a lot better, and over that time, we just developed a business, a very strategic partnership. And then they had asked me to co-author their flagship book that was released in 2015.
So a chef and an author.
Yeah. So this was my first crack at writing. I had developed recipes, but never had made them for the public. It had always been for a professional, chef to chef translations of things. So, actually downloading all of that into, a workable set of recipes. There's about 125 recipes in there, and then a bunch of cooking techniques that were kind of channeled from my culinary school experience as like, okay, proper cooking techniques, proper, knife cuts, and all these different skills are all in this book.
That's awesome. So, and then you changed the name. So pre-made paleo, selling food online, selling meals, all that stuff. And then you just transitioned, you rebranded to
True Fare. So I did that last winter, and the reason we did was pre-made paleo kind of had a confining name because the space as it is, this whether or not you call it ancestral health or you call it clean eating, but this lifestyle has definitely grown from just the paleo diet. The Whole30 is basically taking paleo principles and doing a 30-day reset with no cheats. And it's really designed to change your relationship with food. But then you have the ketogenic diet that has really gotten a lot of legs. And, there's so many similarities to the food that we were making. We were able to make some adjustments and service that community as well. And then fourth is the autoimmune protocol. So all those 4 prongs, that we're able to service through True Fare, we really, we were spending a lot of time explaining, are you paleo? Are you Whole30? Are you ketogenic? Are you AIP? So like True Fare kind of is a little bit more agnostic. So, in terms of its name, but it really has, it promotes what we're about. Without, kind of limiting us to just the paleo diet.
So what is, you hear a lot about keto. Are you keto? I'm doing keto. What is keto?
So keto, I've best heard it described as, it's modified Atkins, which so you're having meats and a higher amount of fat, upwards of 70 to even 90%, depending on if it's more of kind of a medical ketogenic diet, and I would use that for epilepsy. But you would have the proteins, the fats, and very low carbohydrate load. Up 5 to 10% carbohydrates. So, but the great thing I think that keto focuses on that Atkins didn't do as much of is really just your healthy ingredients. You can have a lot of salads when you're doing keto, and you can really have a balanced diet in a lot of respects. I don't think that I could definitely get a lot of sharpshooting against the fat intake, but it's a very effective lifestyle, and I think it's grown in popularity because how effective it is in weight loss and mental clarity.
Yeah, so ketosis is basically you're eating protein and fats for the most part.
Yeah, lower amount of protein though, and higher amounts of fats. And so, when you're in nutritional ketosis, your body is actually not using carbohydrates as its fuel; it's using fat as its fuel. So it's instead of lighter fluid, you're throwing logs on the fire.
Right, and so people, when fat is an emergency fuel source. And so people that are on low-fat diets, what that does is you're telling your body that you're not going to get a whole lot of emergency fuel. So whatever fat goes into your body, you need to hold on to it.
Right.
So when your primary food source is fat, your body burns that first.
Right.
And most people, the whole food pyramid is a bunch of garbage and complete and total bullshit. And low-fat diet is the dumbest thing. So if you're listening and you're eating a low-fat diet, that's stupid. Stop it immediately. Stop today. Go eat some fat go eat
some butter.
Go eat 3 avocados right now. So that's the genesis, not the genesis, but the basis of the keto diet is ketosis. And so I've never done ketosis, but the friends of mine that have done it, they're like, yeah, you can see through walls, man. The mental clarity component to it is pretty substantial.
Absolutely. And, there's a simplicity part of it too, that, once you kind of get in the rhythm of it, you're actually pinching the amount of meals that you need to have, and the amount of time that you need to spend eating. The intermittent fasting component is highly, adopted by the ketogenic
really?
Following. And so, you're having your first meal at 12 or 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and you're having your last meal at 6, 7, or 8 at night. But you're taking the rest of that time off. So you figure if you're not eating between 8 o'clock in the evening and not picking up anything until noon the next day, that's 18, what is that off?
So 16, 17, 18 hours
18
of fasting.
hours of fasting daily that you can do. And, that's where you get that mental clarity because your body's not metabolizing, it's not working, burning, food in the morning. It's really kind of done doing that.
So it's focused on other things.
Yeah. Focus
Wow.
on being
Trevor, have you ever
awesome.
done ketosis?
Yeah.
How what'd you think? How long did you stay in the state of ketosis?
I don't know, 3-4 months.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Was that during deployment?
No.
Jeff Kirkham lived in a state of ketosis for, I think, 2 to 3 years.
It's totally doable.
Yeah.
For me, what I found was my athletic workload was too high, and I had to do targeted carbohydrate intake.
Really?
Yeah. So I was on the low end of my carbohydrate intake. I was doing sub 50 grams a day.
Right.
And for somebody just for reference sake, I'm probably 6-7% body fat all the time, like 175 and 5'9", and I'm doing hour to 2 hours of workout a day, high intensity, above 150 BPM type of thing. So, and I'm running 10-15 miles in a stretch on a regular basis. So the workload was too high.
Really?
Yeah, the ketogenic diet, it wasn't covering what I needed.
Right.
And I was having just odd emotional issues. Like I was just feeling very neutral about a lot of stuff, and I think that I wasn't taking in enough carbohydrates, and literally all I did was double it. Like I went up to 100 grams, which frankly, if anybody's listening, 100 grams of carbohydrate is about 4 apples a day.
Yep.
Like it's nothing. So that's still very low, and I'm probably still in a state of mechanically ketosis.
Right. So we talked yesterday. I mentioned my buddy Mike Morton that won Western States. He does all his endurance stuff he runs in ketosis.
And there's a huge amount of evidence out there, not just anecdotal, but blood tests that they've taken from people that have shown that even to the length of almost a 85% fat intake for ultra distance works very, very well, because when you're in a lower heart rate, your body runs on that material, right? It doesn't need any glycogenic changeover, so you don't need the carbohydrate. So if you're not going to be lifting anything heavy or explosively, then
Mike's like 5'2", 125 pounds.
Yeah.
Little dude. Little dude. So back to your business, and you said you had a more agnostic approach. You didn't want to basically pigeonhole yourself into, that's pre-made paleo. I do keto, I can't mess with that. Or I do this, I can't mess with that. Or, that's just what CrossFitters eat. I'm not a CrossFitter.
Right.
So you rebranded to adapt and evolve, which is, for those listening, it's very important in business. You have to do that to survive. And what's going on now? There's some things you can't talk about. We talked about at breakfast. I would love to mention them, but I'm not going to. A lot of cool stuff's coming down the pipeline for you right now. Like you're adapting and evolving again and growing. And I guess we could say you're doing some retail stuff, or in the process of doing some retail stuff to, your online business is established.
Right.
And now you're looking at other avenues and other profit centers in your business and other places you can put your stuff to make it more readily available.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say over the past year with the rebranded True Fare and really servicing, more of our clients that we've been able to, and, with not only just messaging, but just improving the quality of the food, we've, made a lot of investments into the operational piece of our business, and that's given us a better product. I mean, that's something that we focused on from the beginning. I mean, what you had 7 years ago to what you had 7 months ago is a night and day. And
Right.
so we focused on, ever getting better
Right.
and making our products better. And we'll continue on, the partnerships that we have, in the differences that we have in the direct business for online and retail are big differences. I mean, like in terms of the focus, and what I find myself is much more the brand ambassador of the business. I mean, I've had a fantastic right hand who has handled operations for our business since when we were catering. She came on with me and still is at the helm there. And so what we're doing to take this into retail is actually we work with other processors to make quality products. So we spend a lot of time translating our processes into larger scale. And so that's a big focus that we have.
Delegation of authority and scalability.
Oh, absolutely.
There's two things Evan harps on constantly: is scalability and making changes. So let me ask this: what does the average individual spend a month on food?
Well, I'd say, I mean, if you're going to use our meals as a marker there, I mean, that'd be 60 times maybe an average of $14. So what is that, about 840 plus another 30 times 6. So I mean,
we'll say roughly $1,000.
Yeah, a little over $1,000. And I'd say, I mean, that's eating in.
Yeah, dining in, quality food.
Yeah,
$1,000 a month. Have all your meals. Yeah, that's strong. And it just saves so much time because then you don't have to go to the grocery store. You don't have to buy ingredients. Mm-hmm. You don't have to cook. So if you look at time value of money. So for me, going to the grocery store, cooking the food, and personally, it's worth it to not have to do dishes. I hate doing dishes. I can't stand doing dishes. I'll eat on paper plates the rest of my life if I don't ever have to do a dish again. I hate it. So prep, much shorter. Clean up, substantially shorter. You don't have to spend time in the grocery store. So it just frees you up. It makes your life a lot simpler. It makes it smoother, streamlines everything.
I'd say it saves you about an hour per meal in preparation.
Yeah.
Between the time you spent at the grocery store, that setup and cleanup.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're really working at it, it's gonna take you about an hour to do all the tasks associated with that meal.
And you won't have
that
thousands.
Sounds about right.
And you won't
especially if you're eating that way and eating clean, everything's raw.
Yeah.
Right.
You're starting from zero, and like in the worst case, I mean, what sweet potatoes can take an hour to put on a grill.
Oh, sure.
And cook by themselves.
And then you don't have thousands of bottles of spices that you use once.
Oh, absolutely.
It's all done for you. Everyone's got a spice cabinet. Everyone's got a spice cabinet that will make them look like a frugal gourmet. But when you get down to it, you've like, oh yeah, I used that once like 3 years ago.
Yeah, most of those spices are all caked up.
Yeah, everyone's got like 7 bottles of vanilla extract from Thanksgiving.
That's right.
Yeah, we got to get some more of that. It's like, shit, I got 6 bottles left.
A brick of coriander.
Oh yeah. And bags and bags of brown sugar, and it's like, I don't know. It just makes a lot of sense. So, all right. So we are 40 minutes in, which is strong. So where can people find you, and where can they find your business?
Well, they can find me. I'm active on Instagram and Facebook at Chef Richard SB, and they can find True Fare at True Fare on Instagram, My True Fare on Facebook, and Twitter True Fare.
Right, and then the website
truefare.com.
TRUEFARE.com. So for Baker Levitt and Trevor the Seal, this is Launch Code. Richard, thanks for stopping by, dude. We really appreciate having you. Would like to get you back on in maybe February and talk about some things happening in January. So we don't want to mention them today, but we would like to revisit and just kind of talk about that experience and that next evolution in your business and how, because it's some big changes coming for you.
Absolutely.
So appreciate you having on, man, and looking forward to talking to you soon.
Thank you, Baker. Thank you, Trevor.